Hello and welcome to the Punished for Protecting Live broadcast with your host, Francesca Amato, national expert in the Americans with Disabilities Act, domestic violence and child abuse advocate, best-selling author, and founder of Punished for Protecting Incorporated. We welcome all of our viewers watching on Facebook via Punished for Protecting News and the CPS News Network. If you're watching on YouTube at Punish No More and Free to Protect, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. You can also find Punish for Protecting News on Rumble. Now, without further ado, here is your host, Francesca Amato.
Please also be sure to watch us on Now Network TV, now streaming to 265 million homes. Well, hello and welcome everyone to Punish for Protecting News. I have an extremely special guest today that I'm honored to have, that I got to meet in Washington, D.C. when we did our first interview. I have Arizona Senator Mark Finchem. So nice to have you on today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to be here.
Well, I guess what we're going to do is go back to what we were originally talking about back in D.C. during, I think we were there during the shutdown. I actually was in the halls of Congress all through most of the shutdown, trying to get this Family Justice and Accountability Act, a bill number on it. And I had the privilege of interviewing with you in DC in one of the Airbnbs, which was really nice of you. And I have to tell you, Senator Finchem, I am really, really encouraged by what you're doing, and the fact that you're taking on this, very serious and tragic issue that's been occurring in our country for many decades. And I'd like to ask you first, what got you interested in doing this? What got you started?
Well, my view is people call me Senator Finchem, but my name is Mark, and I work for you. I'm an employee. Now, I know that a lot of elected officials don't have that mindset, but when individuals come to me, when groups come to me and say, we've got a real problem here, and nobody seems to care about it. Well, those are the magic words for Mark. I care deeply about the things that affect my constituents. And when I say my constituents, I'm talking not just about the folks that are in my legislative district, but it's anybody that my activity might touch in a positive way. Those are my constituents. Those are the people that I stand up for. Now, I've been doing this, was first elected in 2014, did my first tour of duty, as it were, in the House of Representatives in 2015. Excuse me. Served 8 years in the House of Representatives and was termed out. In 2022, I was Kerry Lake's running mate for Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor in Arizona, and was just recently elected to the state Senate in a different district. I moved. I thought I was getting out of politics, but it seems my constituents had other ideas. So that's kind of brought me to where I'm at right now. And as a father who has not seen his kids in over 35 years because of the activities of the other parent, this is kind of a personal thing for me. Excuse me. One of the things that really drove me to action here is we had Representative Rachel Keschel had a bill that she wanted to introduce, but it was too late in the session, in this last session. It essentially causes the court to push the pause button. And we're talking about specifically family court in Arizona. And that was to require that both parents agree to court-ordered behavioral intervention. Now, we can get into Kobe in just a minute, but it was a reasonable ask, especially given some of the horror stories that I've heard from parents with when they're facing an abuser or facing somebody who is a megalomaniac or a narcissist on the other side of the table. They just don't want to negotiate. And we have the good fortune to have at least one family court judge, former family court judge on staff at the Senate. And he said, look, most judges recognize within 6 to 9 months that Kobe doesn't work. And quite frankly, you might as well take $100,000 worth of cash, put it in the middle of the floor of the courthouse and set it on fire. You're going to get the same result. You're going to get a lot of heat, a lot of activity, but nothing's going to get done. And in the end, you end up with nothing but ashes. I think that's a great metaphor for what we've seen, because we see families now where they're being stripped financially. They're being stripped down to bare naked bone when it comes to family finances. This is money that should not be going into the pockets of attorneys and psychologists that follow this fringe psychiatric theory of court-ordered behavioral intervention. If you can't get a relationship between a minor and their parent, who's the, we'll say, abuser, if you can't get that to be repaired organically, it's not going to be repaired. You can't force people to have a relationship. Now, the only thing that, quite frankly, we've learned from this whole Kobe thing is that it teaches kids how to play the system. All right, I have to endure this for the next 3 or 4 years, and then I'll tell the abuser to bugger off. That's basically what it turns out to be. But in the meantime, it is bankrupting families. And there were several families that came to me after the bill that we had used, kind of a long story, but in legislative world, I was willing to put up as what's called a striker. It's a strike everything amendment bill. That bill that I had was not going to go anywhere, but Representative Keschel came to me and said, hey, I've got some language I'd like to strike onto your bill, and let's see if we can run it to get these families some relief. So we did. And the social worker who calls herself Governor, Katie Hobbs, in Arizona, promptly vetoed the bill. And she made the statement in her veto letter, which was very strange. She said, just because one family has an issue, that's not a reason to cause a change in the system. Apparently, she did not pay attention to the 40 hours of testimony that were taken by the Joint Legislative Ad Hoc Committee on Family Court Orders, which I had the privilege to chair with Representative Keschel. So this was a whole bunch of different families with the same issues. We have judges who are ordering them to go through this court-ordered behavioral intervention, again, Kobe, and the most insane crap is being pushed on them, and these kids are being forced to fake a relationship with an abusive parent with the idea that, oh, it's all going to be okay. They're going to get past this. No, they're not. Okay. And for what I find most offensive, there's no standard of practice for these guys. None. That's why they have to have something called quasi-judicial immunity, which whenever I see the word immunity, it kind of raises eyebrows. It's like, okay, what's behind that? What's the reason for it? Well, as a result of the horror stories that we heard, and I'm not kidding you, there's one family that has spent over $1 million over the last 9 years just so that the mother could continue to maintain contact with her kids. In my view, that's criminal. And for a judge to allow that to persist, that's worthy of being impeached from the bench. And quite frankly, right now we have got two judges that we intend to go through impeachment hearings. And we don't go back into session. See, the House and Senate have to be in session in order to conduct an impeachment. So we go back into session the second Monday of January. And I've been given to understand that on that day, articles of impeachment against 2 family court judges will be introduced. And I believe that once they go through the impeachment process in the House and it comes over to the Senate for a trial, we will indeed have a trial. And I believe that we will successfully impeach 2 judges that are the most egregious of bad actors. So that's kind of how I got involved. I've got a couple of good friends, several actually, but 2 in particular that have gone through. I've watched them go through this. I've gone through it with them where they've turned to me and they've said, can you believe this? Can you believe that? And it's like, no, quite frankly, I can't. This doesn't make any sense to me, especially when the court's mission is to divide parenting time equitably. It's not to fix people, and Justice Scalia, not Scalia, God, I wish he was still alive. Justice Thomas in the Skermeti, US v. Skermeti case, which people, I'm not going to go all litigation on you, but the Tennessee legislature passed a bill, got it signed into law, that requires the approval of both parents for child mutilation surgery and the whole transgender thing. Okay. Well, the Biden administration, in its infinite craziness, decided they wanted to sue and try and overturn that. Well, the state of Tennessee, under Attorney General Skermeti, won. And I'm so pleased with Justice Thomas. What a great jurist he is. Comes out with some dicta in his part of the opinion. The government is not the super parent. That means, and that's a paraphrase of his, the court is not the super parent. The apparatus of government, like DCS, Department of Child Safety in Arizona. Well, this is a department that loses kids, that rips kids from kin care, rips them from their parents, separates them. So the next battle we'll fight is going to be to deconstruct and reconstruct DCS, because right now there's a perverse financial incentive for them to pursue the separation of children from their parents. So this is the stuff that got me involved, and that's why I've taken up this, some would call it a crusade. We have a package, I think, of 12 bills so far that deal with just individual slices of problems that are in the Arizona family court. And I think it's probably going to be a roadmap for other states. And we've had 17 different states that have contacted my office asking, what did you do and how'd you do it? So.
Well, I mean, everything you're saying rings home with me. And I've been doing it for over 18 years across the country, assisting families. And I was retaliated by a judge in Ulster County, and my son was literally in danger for 8 months. It was a miracle I got him back in 8 months. I was the first mother ever. This particular judge, Anthony McGinty in Ulster County. But I have to say, one thing I have to say, I've been very, very pleased, because when we went down to DC the first time, October 20th and 24th, 20th and 21st, we had a government shutdown. I lost the room in the Rayburn office building because of the shutdown. And we ended up having a library with over 250 parents that came. It was amazing. And we were able to do a whole education panel and then have testimonies both days. And during the shutdown, I was in and out of Congress, working with both the House and the Senate. And we've gotten a very warm response. I'm really happy. We do have bipartisan support, not sponsorship yet. We're in the middle of that. It's in legal, but we do have the support. I even was in, if you see this right here, it should pop up on my screen. Let's see. Sometimes I don't know quite how to use this. I even had, it's not working. I wanted to show people some photos. I had everyone from Grassley's office to right now Representative Sewell's office is we spent 2.5 hours in her office. It was amazing. I mean, they didn't want us to leave. And normally we were rushed out within 10, 15, 20 minutes. They can barely talk to you. What I'm seeing is a huge shift. Let's see, there was Murray's office, and it'd be easier for me to show it on the screen, but it's not allowing me for some reason. We went to, we had appointments with Bacon's office, Representative Bacon, Mark there, just Matt. They're absolutely been amazing. They've contacted me on the weekends. So they know it's like I don't have to even explain myself anymore. I used to be blue in the face over and over again. I've got hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of families all over the country that are just jumping on, telling their testimonies and showing up, which before for many years, because for 18 years, I couldn't get them out of bed sometimes because of the harm and the trauma and the abuse.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here, and I've had a rather terse exchange with the presiding Supreme Court justice about cutting their budget by 30%. The people have lost faith in the court system. And this goes from family court all the way up to the Superior Court, the Appellate Court. And we're talking at the state level. The federal level is even worse. When you have people like Boseberg, that guy not only should be impeached, but he should probably go to prison for what he's done. This is a perversion of the American justice system. You know, the people have a right in our Constitution to a redress of grievances. Well, they can come before the legislature. They can appeal to the executive branch, the governor. But ultimately, their main appeal is to the court system. And when you have judges who, collusion is probably a strong word, but when you have judges that facilitate temporary court orders for 9 years, what? You have attorneys and psychologists who have a perverse incentive, and that is through billable hours, to essentially, and this is probably a strong word, I shouldn't use it, but I will, financially rape these families. And then you have judges who, they want to put a gag order on people. The last time I checked, we have this thing called the First Amendment. Now, if you're interfering with the case, that's one thing. But when you call out a judge for bad behavior, I mean, we've got a situation right now, just one judge. I happen to sit into a, not a family court, but a juvenile court. It's a different court in Arizona. Sat in a juvenile court case that involves DCS, because we're looking at DCS right now to audit them and to make some changes in that agency. Any agency that loses kids and loses focus on what their mission is. I mean, this is an agency that had a group of people that took a picture in a parking lot when it made the rounds on social media with a big sign that said, "We're child snatchers." They were proud of it. Okay, so let's go back to, what is the purpose of government? To protect the civil rights of the people. And when it's not protecting the civil rights of the people, and I mean the civil rights of the parents and the children, yes, law enforcement, children do have civil rights. When we're not doing that, government has broken down. So, you know, when you have judges that impose gag orders on individuals just because they don't like being held accountable, in the case that I just mentioned, I happened to sit in the courtroom. I took an interest in a case, just kind of at random. I had heard that there was a child missing, that there were some foster children involved, that the state was looking at taking their children away. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to do a data point of one, get as much out of one case as you can, because I don't have unlimited time to sit through a court proceeding. But I'm sitting in this courtroom, and the judge is noticeably nervous, I guess, because Senator Finchem is sitting in the gallery. I guess, I don't know. But there were some things, and yes, I did go to law school. got a master's degree in law and legal studies and economics. I decided not to go get the bar just because it's a corrupt organization. Want nothing to do with it, quite frankly. But as I'm listening to this, I'm finding some statements that are very disturbing that were made by the state's attorney. And by the way, picture this: off to my left, there are 5 attorneys, all being paid for by the state of Arizona. 5 going against the parents, who each have their own attorney because they have to. And then I come to find out that the attorneys are always assigned to the judge. There's no rotation.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so now you've got what appears to be a team that's going against the parents. That means they get just a little too cozy in their relationship. Okay. Now, I don't really give a damn if the judge likes that I'm in their courtroom or not. My job for my constituents is oversight. And what better way to engage in oversight but to watch what's going on in the courtroom and then fashion a response from that? Well, this particular judge decided he was going to close the courtroom for a dependency hearing. Wait a minute, that's a public hearing. Based on what? Well, based on the fact that there were some people that were paying attention to what this judge was doing. So he has now earned himself a spot on my list of, we're going to pull the transcript. We're going to go through the transcript. I've already got a portion of it. And it looks to me like I'm going to have to file a bar complaint against the state's attorney to have him disbarred because he lied to the court. It also appears that he withheld something akin to exculpatory evidence against the parents, claiming that they were abusive and there's a potential for abuse, when in fact there was no abuse and the children were in another state. He had DCS workers fly to another state, forcibly remove those children from kinship care. And there's something very wrong with the system that permits that.
And the problem that I see constantly, repeatedly, all over the country is that they'll have a concern about abuse, but they'll place children right into the hands of abuse without a blink of an eye, and you're in limbo forever trying to get your children back from vicious abuse. I did figure out how to post these photos, by the way. Let me kind of show you.
Well, don't worry about it. The thing that I find interesting is they want to jerk children away from a parent who may not know all of the facts and circumstances about their medical care, and put them in the hands of a foster parent who doesn't know anything about their medical care.
That's one of the worst situations. Okay. Because
wait a minute.
They take them abruptly without their medication.
Yeah. So, okay, the state, let's go back and visit Justice Thomas's words. The state is not the super parent. Are these perfect parents? No. I'm thinking I know of only 2 people that were perfect parents that raised the perfect son. Joseph and Mary did a pretty darn good job.
And thank God for it.
and thank Jesus for it. Yeah. But, we're now looking at, I think the reason that this is bubbling up is the people have had it. They no longer have faith in the court system. And it's not just family court. I mean, they look at what's going on in state and federal courts on elections, for example. You have an election contest and the judges refuse to hear it. Oh, you don't have standing, or you don't do this, or you don't do that. Well, here's my response to the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court. If you're going to dismiss cases because they don't have standing, then why the hell do we have you sitting on the bench? Why are we paying you if all you're going to do is sit there and say no?
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy.
So we're some people would say Finchem's at war with the courts. War is such a harsh word, but yeah, I guess that's probably it.
It's funny because one of the was it a senator, or U.S. senator or Congress member that stated, and I literally am bringing in corrections because less than 40% of the members of Congress are attorneys, and that could be good or bad because I'm with you on the Bar Association. It's in my bill with regards to the history of the Bar Association and just how corrupt it is. But ironically, I always tell everyone, please get educated on what your real rights are, your articles of human rights, the Constitution, the ADA, which is my background, because you're coming against people. They're coming against you, and they're telling you that the law says something that it does not say. So you can't fight for your rights if you don't know them. And our laws are really good. We don't need to change laws. We need to just enforce the ones we have.
Well, we've got that, but we also need to box the court in so it has no choice but to follow the law.
That's the biggest problem of all. That's the biggest problem.
That's what we're doing in Arizona with the package of 12 or so bills.
Yeah.
We're going to, for example,
I'm going to mute again. Sorry.
We're going to attempt to put a limit on what the judge can award from one parent to another in the way of lawyer fees and psychology fees. Right now, we've set it at $8,000 maximum. $8,000 for you to decide this matter in family court. $8,000 for you to employ against psychology, and you can't go over that. So if you want to pay a lot of money and you're the narcissistic POS that you are, and you want to drag this out in court, you're the one that's going to be paying the freight, not your co-parent. So we've got that. The other thing we want to do is put a limit on temporary orders, a time limit. Right now, we're kind of going between 120 and 180 days. And, some of the lawyers have said, well, the court's docket is so stuffed. Well, here's my response. Then fine, appoint a special master.
Well, if they did things correctly the first time, they wouldn't be going on forever. They intentionally keep people, they keep families in there forever on purpose.
But that's where the perverse incentive by the attorney who's inflaming the passions of at least one side to keep billable hours going. I had a conversation earlier today with a mom who would go to counseling, and then her attorney would tell her, hey, call me when you're done and let me know how it went. And then the attorney would keep her on the phone for a half an hour, 45 minutes.
And then bill her $1 million.
And bill her for it. This isn't a social call.
I know.
So it's that kind of behavior that lawyers engage in that sucks the life out of the family budget. This is money that should be spent on caring for kids, food, shelter, clothing, education. Instead, it's lining the pockets of attorneys, psychologists, counselors. I mean, it's a full cadre of individuals who are standing in line waiting for the court to make an order, which, by the way, they have quasi-judicial immunity. If they don't get the job done, nobody can sue them.
Yeah, and that immunity is fake, first of all. I tell everyone, that immunity is what they wrote in. It's not even real immunity. A real immunity is in the violations of the Articles of Human Rights, the violations of the ADA, that we have real immunity and their clients have real immunity. Here's the thing. One of the senators said, what did they say? They said, my bill, because it's very comprehensive, is overreaching. I said, no, honey, the court's overreaching. My bill is actually the law. It's actually the law. And if you think that the bill is overreaching, then you agree with you took an oath to the Constitution. That really scares me. We are going to go to a quick commercial. But I really want you to touch on that one that I just said after this commercial.
We'll be right back after a message from Punished for Protecting Incorporated. Each new generation of protective mothers is shocked when they first go to family court and find it doesn't favor single mothers and is willing to jeopardize children. Francesca's harrowing experience with the broken family court system, from which she finally received justice after 8 months of struggle, is proof that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Francesca has one of these unspeakably cruel cases and has responded by shining a large spotlight on widespread failures so other mothers won't be shocked. Punished for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court by Francesca Amato Banfield, advocate, mother, whistleblower, founder, and TV talk show host of Punished for Protecting. If you are struggling with injustices wrought by our courts, this book will help guide you through the process. Available on Amazon.com. Search Punished for Protecting and get your copy today. Help abolish family court by purchasing Punished for Protecting merchandise. Here are our top sellers. See the link in the YouTube video description to find out how to get your Punished for Protecting t-shirt. Get your high-quality Punished for Protecting t-shirt while supplies last, and let everyone know that you stand for justice. Are you being re-victimized by the family court system? Do you need help with your case? Go online and book a talk with Francesca. Go to punished4beingAparent.com/book-a-talk. Fill in your name, email address, and message to Francesca. Someone will get back to you within 24 hours. Francesca and her staff of volunteers continue to work tirelessly every single day for parents and children who are in need of their help. There have been multiple success stories, including Francesca's, which gives hope to others in similar situations. Punished for Protecting Incorporated has incurred out-of-pocket expenses with zero funding to help families get their children back or to save their children from being taken. We also have provided funds to help with retainers, food, lodging, and travel. We really need your help so we can continue to provide our many services. Any amount is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to donate or sponsor a family in need of help, go to Cash App, Free the Children. And now back to our broadcast.
We also have the book, I Survived a Narcissist. You can too. The System That Fooled a Nation, Sophisticated Child Trafficking, and the latest book, Homewrecker, The Jezebel Spirit.
You got some good looking books there.
I don't know where I went. I'm gone. I'm not on the screen anymore.
Yes, you are.
They don't love me. You can see me? Okay. I don't know what's going on with that, but you can see me. So I have that loaded question for you. You're the perfect person to respond to it, where a U.S. Senator said to me, my bill, which is the Constitution, the Articles of Human Rights, the ADA enforcement, basically, and then recompense for the families, gag orders, all that good stuff we just talked about. They said it was overreaching.
Oh.
What do you think there?
That came from a U.S. Senator?
You got it.
Huh. Well,
I won't say who.
Well, Senator, perhaps you should revisit the U.S. Constitution. There's this thing called the Ninth Amendment. It doesn't get a lot of discussion, but the power that we have is the individual franchise in this country. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court notwithstanding, they came out and said, well, for something to be a Ninth Amendment protection, it has to be longstanding and basically hereditary in the community. No, actually, the Bill of Rights was formed, and if you look at the history between Hamilton and Madison, The Ninth Amendment was put there so it was a safeguard for the government overreach. So let's revisit the Constitution for just a second. It is there not to control the people, but to control the government. That is why we have states' rights. That is why the federal government has discrete and enumerated powers. If it's not been awarded by the Constitution to the federal government, it doesn't exist. Period. So, Senator, yes, the people have a right to tell the government how it's going to behave. And quite frankly, if you want to sit on that big chair with the big suspenders, you might want to check in with your constituents, because right now they have zero respect for the court, especially in the family court system. This is a court that specifically can order judgments against parents for being good parents, for exercising good judgment. The court can order them, oh, you're a little on edge. I think you should go see a psychologist at $325 an hour. Well, we're going to have to continue this case on until next month, because I want to have motions from the attorneys to address the question that you've just posed, whatever that question might be. So there's another $2,500 to $3,500 to prepare the motion, do the research, and get it in front of the judge. All this is a money-making machine. And the American Bar Association and the various baby state bars, they're behind it. This is to ensure that all of the lawyers are first at the trough for the government payout. That means court-ordered government payout, funded by the people, of course. So when it comes to a gag order, I would really like to see somebody press that one, because if you're violating my civil rights, that's a Section 1983 under color of authority case. Now, one of the things you had touched on before is quasi-judicial immunity. That's really for employees of the court. And there's, if you go back in common law and you study what that was for the court to bring on people to do certain tasks for the court, not for professionals, psychologists, who don't operate under a known standard of practice. So what they've done here is, because these judges don't go to domestic assault school, they don't go to rape recovery school, they don't go to sexual assault school, they don't get training in any of that. Yet they're supposed to, in Arizona, for example, ARS 25-403, that's the name of the law. If people want to go read it, it's easy to find, cites 12 things in a list that the court shall consider in awarding parenting time, if it's going to be something other than 50-50. Domestic assault, sexual assault, it goes right down the list, okay? What's curious to me, and this is kind of the inner workings of law, it's like somebody just threw those in there. They didn't put them in order of severity. So in the coming legislative session, we are going to remind the court that, yes, you will consider the top 5 that deal with violence against the child or violence against a co-parent, and that will be part of your consideration for a temporary court order. Now, I'm sure that the social worker who masquerades as governor, Katie Hobbs, will probably veto all of these bills, but she does that at her own peril, because the people have had a gutful. What I found was very interesting. The day that she vetoed the bill that Representative Keschel presented language for, the social media networks lit up. And we had people, I was previously a Democrat until I saw that Katie Hobbs hates children and families. I've now decided to become an independent. Didn't want to go to being a Republican, even though it's Republicans that are leading the charge on this, by the way. I've never been able to understand why people support a political party. And I know this is probably supposed to be a nonpartisan show, but they support a political party that is big into Satanism, that is big into abrogating parental rights, that's big into indoctrination in the schools to let children know, oh, We don't have to tell your parents that you're on birth control. We don't have to tell your parents that you're going to have physical surgery that can't be reversed. We don't have to tell you, fill in the blank. This is a political movement, I think, that is gaining steam, if you will, to take a position against the current operation of the court system. And I hope that my colleagues around the country will take a look at what we're doing and rein in the family courts. Governors that like to sit in those big chairs with those big suspenders, you better pay attention to what your constituents are saying, because we now have got, I think, a movement that's strong enough to begin impeaching judges. Now, I think that, I hate to focus too much on that, but when you've got a judge that is going to put gag orders on people, ignore their ADA rights, ignore all of the rules that the court has already set out to say this is how you're going to handle something. And when they ignore that, or they ignore the law in totality, and they forget that the pole star, the North Star, if you will, of what they're supposed to be doing is the best interest of the child. Now tell me that forcing a child, a minor, into a room repetitively or into a camp with their abuser to force an inorganic relationship, tell me that that's in the best interest of the child. It's not.
It's my biggest complaint constantly. It's horrible.
It's the best. It's quite frankly, it's the best interest of the people that are getting paid.
It's the most evil thing on the planet. Yeah. And I keep saying this to fix.
That's got a lot of competition for evil things, but it is evil.
But the health and welfare, the health and mental health and physical health of families across our country is in the brink of literally getting rid of the family court. Obviously, I don't think we can abolish it. That's my main goal. But enforcing the law will literally stop. It will actually prevent mental health issues and the damages and the gaslighting. And children are Stockholmed, like you said before. They're forced to stay with an abuser because they know that if they speak up, and when you speak up for them, they're forced to stay there more, and they're silent. So they have to literally cope with life and until they're like it's 18 or more.
Until they age out.
Yeah, and then it's you
know. My public policy concern here is there's on a couple of levels. One, are we manufacturing future abusers?
We clearly are. We're producing the next generation.
That's certainly one to think about. Are we separating children from their rightful parents? Yeah. Are we separating the money that should go to their child care, their rearing from the family? Yeah, we are. And who's getting rich off of it? Lawyers.
It's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars.
All of the people that are involved in the court system. And here's the travesty. You got a judge that perhaps just gets a little too cozy with these people and loses. See, judges are supposed to be the neutral arbiter. They're not supposed to cop an attitude with one of the parents. We've got one young man right now that the judge just hates him because he and his baby mama didn't get married. Okay, but they're parents. And whether they're married, divorced, no longer married, separated, the moment you have a child, you're a family forever. Now, that doesn't mean you're married forever, but that does mean that you are a family forever. And for those abusive types that are out there, the narcissist who likes to control things, you're the one that needs the help. And you're going to try and get the last word all the time. I run into these people all the time. They've got to have the last word. That's like, no. Society is not going to put up with your shenanigans. Now, if you want to go get some mental help for yourself, when I say mental help, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I'm saying, and sometimes it's emotional help. Sometimes, I've got to believe that some of these narcissists were deprived as kids. They were manufactured. I don't think that narcissism is a naturally occurring pathology.
No. And the second book that you saw that I wrote, I Survived a Narcissist, You Can Too.
I want to read that book.
I'm going to send it to you. It's not what you think. It's very spiritual. It has to do with I'm a firm believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. It has to do with the Jezebel spirit, and I grieve over people that have that because they come from abuse. So I'm not like everybody else. It's like a household name now, but it's like Bleach, the narcissism. But this book is very, very different than what everybody's saying, so to speak. And I have prayer in it. It's to bring healing to the body of Christ. It's to bring healing. It's a clever title, and it didn't come from me. I prayed about it. So just to say, but I'll send you a copy.
So I think that, Arizona right now is producing, like I said, I think we've got 12 bills in a package. We're not going to do an omnibus bill because that means just one signature would blow it all up. We're going to force the governor to take a look at every single piece of legislation and understand what it is we're driving at. For the court to come out, and this is the appellate court. This is why people don't have any faith in the court system anymore. It's the most absurd thing I think I've read since I've been back in office. The decision is the Gutierrez case out of Arizona, appellate court, where the court comes out and says, well, they're temporary orders, so you don't need to consider 25-403. Wait, what? That's where you have to consider sexual abuse, domestic abuse, abuse against others. And you're saying that's not a factor in a temporary order that could go on for months? Au contraire. So one of the things that we're doing is rewriting that piece of legislation that's currently in law to break it out and do temporary orders and final orders. Temporary orders, you have to consider these things. For final orders, you have to consider those things and these things. I think that it's going to essentially upend Gutierrez and make it very clear to the court. And we'll be adding legislative intent language. We're going to make it very clear to the court. We're not messing around here. And if you can't follow the law, we're going to defund you. You are destroying families.
100% destroying. I have a loaded question for you before we end this interview today.
Loaded question number 2.
This is a real loaded one. So in the bill that I drafted, it's the proposed bill, the Family Justice and Accountability Act. I have not just recompense, but where judges, how do you feel about this? This is what I really want to know. Where judges are never held accountable, so children are murdered every day because of a court order. They're abused every day. They live a life of abuse. They live a life of molestation. This is an ongoing problem. I've seen so many moms and dads in supervised visits where their children are now, you see bruises on their body. They're saying things that they shut them up when they say certain things are happening to them. And it's no possible way that it's happening from that parent because they're being supervised. So generally it's the protective parent that's being supervised while the abuser has the children. So they can no longer blame that parent because they reported the abuse. So in these cases where it's a horrible way to live because now you can't protect your child, you're being restrained from your child. Don't you feel, and I put this in the bill, that judges should be held accountable like any other person, if not even at a higher gold standard, if you will, whereby they should be arrested because if you accidentally do a court order, I can understand it if it happened once in a blue moon. This is happening. I've watched this for over 18 years across the entire country. Repetitiously, children are being murdered. We had 40 deaths of children in New York State alone. I can go off. I have lists and lists and lists of murdered children through court orders. Murdered children through court orders. Why are they not being held accountable? And don't you feel they should be?
Well, I'll take the second half of the question first. Yes, they should be held accountable, and we do have a mechanism to hold them accountable. In Arizona, we have a split system. So rural counties, judges run for election. In Maricopa County, because it's so big, those judges go by judicial appointment. So the executive appoints them from a pool of candidates that the judiciary presents. The mechanism for that is impeachment. Now, it takes a while, but it's a trial. Just like it's a trial in front of the full Senate, okay? So if the House of Representatives comes across a case where a judge has engaged in egregious disregard, careless, reckless disregard for evidence that has been presented to them about an individual who poses a threat to the children, and this is not just accusations, this is proof. This is bruises, broken bones, medical reports, and all that, okay? That's the kind of thing that the legislature, somebody in the legislature should be taking, I would say the chairman of judiciary should be looking at something like that to say, okay, we're going to move forward with articles of impeachment because not only was there a child murdered, but we've also got a situation where the judge had notice, the judge had evidence, and the judge himself or herself placed that child in jeopardy. I think it's a very slippery road to go down to put into law that judges are going to be prosecuted for something like that, that you eliminate judicial immunity. I do think that there are some tools within federal law, for example, Section 1983, an abrogation of civil rights, that applies to judges too. Now, the judiciary may say, oh, no, we're exempt. Hell no. No. You are not exempt from violating somebody's civil rights. And if
That's
the court
right.
does
100%.
that,
That's right.
if the court does that,
They try to use Rucker-Feldman doctrine, and I can argue that easily as a non-attorney.
So here's where I'm going with the whole impeachment piece. You get a judge and understand, here's a kind of a subtle nuance in Arizona. Family court judges, that's a rotation. They're only there for 18 to 24 months. And then they go on to some other part of the court system. If they get impeached, that means they're done being a judge, period. Their judge career is over. So the mere threat of an impeachment is going to have some would say, well, it's going to be a chilling effect on the judges. No, it's going to be a chilling effect on judicial misbehavior. Okay? So if the judges really do see that there is a consequence for bad actions, for bad behavior, for their own narcissistic proclivities, well, I can see where you have a group of judges that would say, I'm glad I'm not that guy, and I'm going to make sure that I don't do that.
And it sets an example for the rest, so we can start having something. You know, I have to tell you, out of all the years I've done this, I can almost say less. I'm actually be exaggerating if I said less than 1%. Even I've seen no good outcomes all these years. It's been horrible. Okay, it's something that you can't even believe, that you're sitting there watching, and what the decisions that they're making, you know something is wrong. It's corrupt. There's no possible way a human being would make these types of decisions. But on a rare occasion, I got to glimpse, because they straightened up a little, because they got a little scared or whatever, and they did the right thing, so to speak. They never did the whole right thing, just parts of it. It's such a breath of fresh air. It's like when you go into a courtroom, and if you have a legal mind and you like things to be just and you believe in justice, and you go into what they're calling courtrooms, I don't believe they really are, but when you go in and you see it running the way it should run, it is such a breath of fresh air. I can't explain it. It's like this is how it should be. Due process, innocent till proven guilty, not guilty till proven innocent, and then lives are at stake. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. If it ran the way it should, we wouldn't have these issues, and it's not. And there's zero accountability.
Yeah, my biggest, amongst the big concerns, I think my biggest concern is the notion that you got attorneys who, instead of putting fires out, are creating fires, because this is how they make their money, billable hours. And they, of course, are going to refer to, well, you know, Your Honor, we need to have a psychologist involved in this because the other parent has really got a problem, okay? And it's affecting the child. Well, they buy into that crap, okay? And instead of following established standards of practice, they go off on these fringe trips to La La Land. Okay. If there were a standard of practice that were adopted by the court, the psychologist wouldn't need to have judicial immunity, quasi-judicial immunity.
That's right.
Wouldn't be necessary. Here's the other thing that would happen. Families could tap their health insurance. Because these people do not abide by a standard of practice, health insurance companies are not going to provide insurance coverage. So, and of course, the health insurance companies right now are probably freaking out about what I just said because they're going to have more claims. But at the end of the day, I think that we need to have a period of accountability for judges, especially in the family court. And by the way, you look through the entire judicial system at the state level. If you have a legislature that grows a spine and introduces articles of impeachment and details the bad behavior, I guarantee you that every judge in that state is going to be watching that. And if it moves through committee to the committee of the whole, we're talking about legislative process here, and is passed out of the House of Representatives and goes to the Senate for a trial, that's where the judge has to hire a lawyer to argue against the impeachment. And that's where somebody, probably the Senate manager, whoever that might be, somebody appointed, is going to ask the judge, what about this? And what about that? And what about the other thing? And then the body has an opportunity to come together for a 2/3 majority vote to impeach the judge. And if that happens, they are no longer a judge as of that minute. They're done. So I would encourage my colleagues in the legislatures around the country. Yes, I agree that impeachment should be for the most egregious of behaviors. But what can be more egregious than the violation of a family's civil rights?
Exactly. And the damages. One of the portions of the bill that I have is independent committees based of just regular lay people, non-working, nobody that works for the court, to hold these judges accountable, to ensure that they don't make their own decision to recuse themselves. Oh, I'm not biased. Oh, okay, yeah. And then any reasonable person can see that you are clearly biased. So they would be the ones that would be making the decisions so that all this danger just stops happening. So
that also comes back to impeachment. If a judge acts unethically, if they should impeach and they didn't, that becomes an article for impeachment.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. I wish we could talk all day. We are almost at the top of the hour, so we're going to be ending now, but I will be following you around like Elijah and Elisha till we get this done. Everyone's really happy. Just to let you know, I'm in Facebook jail again, by the way, or this would be streaming off of other platforms, but this will be on Now Network TV in the next probably week. So, and anyway, thank you so very, very much for this wonderful interview. I know it's very encouraging for those that are watching. And God bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Well, thank you. And if people want to follow what we're doing, they can subscribe to my Substack, which is markfinchem.substack.com. I'll be putting out updates on the kind of progress that we're making on getting these family court order bills through. All right.
That's what we want. Thank you so much. God bless.
Bye.
Of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental